In this video, I will show you how to use the peer assessment app in an ILS. The peer assessment app allows students to review and provide feedback to their peers on several inquiry learning products created in other GoLab applications. For example, they can review and provide feedback for the hypothesis created in the hypothesis Graasp by one or more peers. At the same time, a student can request feedback for the same learning product. So each student has to undertake two roles, namely the peer assessor and the peer assessee role. The peer assessment app must be included in a separate phase of an ILS called peer assessment phase. This phase must be right before the conclusion phase so that students can have the opportunity to rework their learning products based on the feedback they will have received from their peers. Now let us see how we can configure the peer assessment app in Graasp. We click on the gear icon for the settings of the tool. The first thing we see is the apps that can be combined with the peer assessment app. For each one of them, there are default instructions and assessment criteria. This of course can be changed if we want to do so. We can add or delete criteria and type our own instructions. Here we can choose whether the feedback for each one of the assessment criteria will be required, the type of the assessment, for example, if there will be 3 smileys, 5 smileys or text anchors, and if we want students to accompany their assessment with comments. At the bottom, we can choose the number of the assignees per feedback request. For the beginners, it is preferable to have only one request and one feedback. If we check the Show Feedback Assigning, then the matching process, meaning that who is giving feedback to whom, will be visible in the standalone view of the ILS. If we do not check this option, then only the owner of the ILS can view it and make the matching process through the Graasp. Let us say that I don't want my students to have access to the matching process. And the last thing we can change is whether we want to allow the possibility of assigning a request to the requester. This can serve for self-assessment purposes. I will now click this in order to be able to provide feedback to myself for the purpose of this demonstration. Now I will log in to the ILS as a student. Work my hypothesis in the hypothesis Graasp. And request feedback. Right after I confirm my request, the icon changes and I can withdraw my request if I wish to send another hypothesis for feedback. Back in Graasp as a teacher now, I can manage the matching process in the peer assessment app. So I will now assign my request to myself. Returning to the ILS and the peer assessment phase, I can see as a student that I have a request. I open it, complete it and send it back to the peer assessee. By clicking this button. Because I am the peer assessee, I can see from here that I have received my feedback. This allows me to go back to the hypothesis Graasp and rework my hypothesis if needed. When I do this, I can click here to view the feedback I have received.